Hey everyone, I'd be totally wrong if I didn't address what was going on in the world right now with the Black Lives Matter protest. I'd love to say a ton on this, but I also realize that I might not be the best at dealing with it right now in a short, brief part before a video about VeggieTales, so I'm going to send some links. I'm going to link you to a project done by a friend of mine. It was the 28 Days of Black History, which goes into the history of Black Canadians throughout, well, the history of the country, as well as Phil Vischer's video about white privilege and systematic racism. I think both links do a much better job of giving perspective as we go forward in trying to understand each other in this society. Love you all, and please be open and empathetic. We serve a God who sees us all as equal, and we've got a long way to go before we've even reached half of that. On that note, let's start the video. Welcome, beloved. I am your host, SDA Storyteller, and today we are talking about joy. Joy that flows like a fountain, joy that the spirit yearns for, joy that only comes from the purest of places. Mr. Butter's Doodle Whopper. Let's talk about episode 3 of the VeggieTales show, A Lifetime Supply of Joy. Story. We start the episode with Larry busting into the theater like a certain man of Kool-Aid. Excited to share with the veggies the good news that he is one of the finalists for
the Mr. Twisty's Twisted Cheese Curl Sweepstakes!
Well, actually, the Mr. Butter's Doodle Whoppers Cookie Contest, where the grand prize is
a lifetime supply of Mr. Butter's Doodle Whoppers in their Cookies for Life contest.
This, Larry says, will give him true happiness. The only thing that can get in his way is Junior Asparagus, the other finalist, who, once he hears that cookies are the only way Larry could be happy, responds with the greatest comeback ever.
Then I guess you just won't be happy, because the Doodle Whoppers are mine!
The opening dialogue between Larry, Bob, and the other veggies felt very in character. Even Larry's beef with Junior. Like, look at those faces! Their expressions are great! Junior has this snarky face, and Larry is like ready to duel. To change the subject from this duo, the gang reads a letter from... okay, Tank Engine fans, let's do this. Thomas. Whoa, okay, don't expect me to do that again. Who asks how he can be happy if his friend Alejandro has a cooler bike than he does. Wait, no! Okay, stop that. I'm gonna get copyright struck. Not that I make any money off these vids. They do the theme, and Petunia helps them shift focus. She performs a song about joy to a classroom of kids, and has the kids move from a materialistic worldview focused on temporary happiness to a worldview with a foundation of relationships for joy.
Even more than a cookie or a bike or a toy, what we really, really want is joy. What we really, really want is joy.
It's kind of nice to see that Callie Flower escaped the vortex of VeggieTales in the house, now voiced by Stephanie Sutherland. I really enjoyed the fact that though Junior was even in that skit, the question of why not joy and cookies was brought up immediately, as it segued great into
Archibald steals the show!
In response, Archibald knocks it out of the park, and literally knocks Bob aside. No, check this out. I didn't notice this the first time I watched this episode, but Bob flew straight off of camera.
I need 2 leads. Ah, yes. You 2.
With a fantastic retelling of the story of Paul, Silas, and the Philippian jailer, how they were wrongly thrown into prison and found joy in their relationship with God, therefore finding strength to sacrifice their happiness for the good of others. Yo, Archibald Asparagus is one of those characters in VeggieTales who has a lot of range. He's just as silly as everyone else, but he wears a tie, and that makes him dignified. Moving from silly to cynical and still keeping character makes Archie fun to watch. So much so, it's kind of disappointing when he's not used to his full potential. I'm looking at you, Pirates Don't Do Anything, a VeggieTales movie. I'm looking at you. Here is the storyteller, not from a Bob-written script as in God Wants Us to Make Peace. Archibald really flexes the art of suspense-filled storytelling, putting a break in a very short story that gives the viewer time to reflect and wonder what they would do in that situation. Now, the story itself about the Philippian jailer is one I really love. You can watch me tell the story in church at a link below. No, seriously, it's great. I wear a costume, I have a sword. That wouldn't be used in that period of time, but still, it's a sword. Back to the storyline. Larry and Junior play Paul and Silas, which is great because they're both experiencing the story and seeing how it reflects on their own growth. Laura plays a poor slave girl, which the show just calls her a peasant girl.
A poor peasant girl?
I don't know why VeggieTales tried to clean this part up. Biblically, she was a slave that had been possessed, and her owners were using her to read fortunes and make money. After Paul and Silas cast out the demon, everyone freaks out, specifically her owner, who has them all thrown in jail. This is in Acts chapter 16, verse 16 to 24. I get the whole demon thing is something VeggieTales has never really addressed, and there's lots of debate, as it can be seen as possibly a mental illness or some other situation going on with her mentally, and maybe VeggieTales doesn't want to touch all that. But I think it's weird how often VeggieTales does not address slavery, except in Josh and the Big Wall.
We were in slavery!
Ballad of Little Joe, story of Joseph, he was a slave. Mo and the Big Exit, obviously the Israelites were slaves. Big River Rescue, the Huckleberry Larry episode. Lil Yimmy, who is Jim, is based on the runaway slave in the story of Huckleberry Finn. Becky in The Penniless Princess was a scullery maid who, let's look at the time, happened to have a skin color where she was more likely treated more like a, slave. I can only assume it was a censor thing or possibly a difficult to explain thing, but still, VeggieTales, really weird flex here.
Nothing is perfect.
Oh hey, look! Mr. Lent is a slave master again! Don't know why that keeps happening. But okay. Oh, and there's a fan favorite, Miss Akmisa. Anyway, our boys are tossed into prison, alongside Jimmy and Jerry, who are in there for public nudity? No, seriously, everyone's at least wearing one article of clothes. It's really weird to see Jimmy and Jerry naked here. I know they're normally naked, but yuck. But even there, in the dark, they find joy in praising God. After an earthquake hits, it frees all our heroes, and they are confronted with a great cliffhanger. If Paul and Silas leave, the jailer dies. But if they stay, they might die. This was fantastic, as I'd never really given myself much time to think about this. If you could have everything you ever wanted at the expense of someone else, would you take it? This intermission was extremely well placed, and avoiding a quote-unquote real silly song keeps you from losing that tone that's been set.
Very dramatic. I like it.
Paul and Silas choose to stay, showing that joy can be anywhere with God by your side. To wrap it all up, Larry wins the contest and shares his cookies. Bob gets a verse and, well, we're done. Great. So, let's break this down. I really like this episode. The previous two episodes weren't great, but this one finally felt like they were taking steps into making the show the best it could be. Yeah, I really like the set being bigger, and the cast was really used to its full potential. The story was dramatic, which was not the case for the first two shows. The story lent itself to a thorough dive into a concept that was important to both kids and adults. Heck, even non-religious people can take a lesson from this. but I'll talk more about that when I talk about the message. Honestly, this is a well-deserved 8 out of 10.
I won!
Let's talk about the music.
Move over, Mozart.
Mr. Butters' Doodle Whoppers. I love jingles. This wasn't a great jingle though, but the music for it kept coming back in the show, and that was fun. To have a reoccurring theme pop up isn't new to VeggieTales, or film in general, but it shows that there is thought put into the soundtrack. It's not just generic music. I can't help but imagine Mr. Butters looking something like the Goofy Goober in SpongeBob SquarePants or the Planter's Peanut. Happy. So, Petunia singing this song was great, and I loved the cast of kids. The song was fun enough that I feel like as a kid I would sing it and the lesson would stick with me, which is what I like in a VeggieTales vegecational song. Callie Flower's design is close enough to In the House, but her eyes kind of freak me out. Both the lyrics and the melody really fit to convey kind of a schoolroom lesson type of vibe. Like, this could have been in an original VeggieTales episode. Petunia kind of slides around the room though, and it's not new or wrong, it just kind of stuck out to me, like Morticia Addams.
And then they did something very unusual. They sang.
Singing in Jail. This song was great. Loved the Christmas lights, loved the whole group getting involved, loved the riverboat Louisiana flavor to the song. It's what I love about VeggieTales telling Bible stories. It takes inspiration from all over to create a truly unique retelling of a story that most of us already know. It's like a Western Moses, or a film noir Esther, or a fairy tale retelling of Ruth, or a retelling of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in a capitalist dystopian chocolate factory. The creativity, without harming the scripture, is always something that warms my heart. And the song really worked too.
Larry, can you give us a silly song?
I'm too agitated to be silly, Bob.
The Agitated Song with Larry. I loved this gag. When the song is shorter than the intro, you just have to laugh. You don't believe me? Here.
And now it's time for Agitated Songs with Larry, the part of the show where Larry comes out and sings an agitated song.
That was 23 words, and here's how long the song was.
I'm very, very upset, and I'm not having fun. So if you will excuse me, my little song is done.
That's 20 words. I hope I didn't get demonetized for that. I'll admit, I could have had more, but for the sake of the joke, not too shabby. This song was written by, and I'm going to butcher the name, Guy Veliskovich, who worked on The Great Mouse Detective, Black Cauldron, Garfield, Cat Scratch, the Hey Arnold movie, and Sea Bear and Jamal. All in all, for the music, it was great. We're giving you a 7.5 out of 10.
Even more than a cookie or a bike or a toy, what we really, really
The message.
want is joy.
Joy is something we sing about, but seldom take a moment to dwell on. In fact, a lot of us don't even stop to see the difference between happiness and joy. We seek joy because it's happiness that's not based on circumstance, which is the reason why Paul and Silas could sing in jail. But Junior asked a serious question, and that hit me hard. Why not have happiness and joy? This was great because I was that type of smart aleck kid growing up who would question my teacher's logic. Oh, and the show gives a good answer. You can have happiness and joy, no problem. But don't be so focused on your happiness that you hurt others or block their joy. For Paul and Silas, it was helping the jailer know Jesus. For a parent, it might be simply spending time with their child. For a friend, it might be sitting down and watching that baby show they love so much so that they can make their YouTube videos. Sadly, I don't know anyone who would do such a thing. But the reason the God part matters so much for us as Christians is to remind us that we aren't alone and can have a personal relationship anywhere. I know some non-Christians watch my vids, and please don't take that as a jab. You guys are greatly appreciated here, and honestly, I love the diversity of this audience. Seeking happiness is not the point. We should be seeking for joy. I had a whole piece here about heaven and how it's all about relationships with God and not getting everything you want. Otherwise, heaven is pointless and would basically be a giant free catalog. But I'll save that for when I start reviewing something like Upload, The Good Place, or Black Mirror. Then we can talk about heaven and hell, and that would be a fascinating video. All in all, the message was great. I find a lot of the episodes that have come out of the VeggieTales show I didn't really like. They tend to leave a lot more serious questions open. It's not VeggieTales' fault. You can only cover so much in half an hour without becoming a lecture. So, yeah, 9 out of 10. This is the best message so far.
Joy isn't about what we have. It's about being loved by God and seeing the difference He makes for other people, too.
This brings us to a total of an overall 8. This was a great show. Keep bringing us good content like this Big Idea and Trinity Broadcasting and Universal. I look forward to it. Thank you, everyone. I know this was a long time coming. I know I missed a month. Thanks for all your support. Please don't forget to comment below. I got something special for y'all when we reach 500 subs. I might even release the video I made back for 300 subs so we can see how that goes. Thanks again, and SDA Storyteller signing out.